Namaskar. So today we'll talk about GST reform. You know that GST itself was a major reform, but now in that next generation reform, government has introduced by reviewing the GST slabs and bringing other reforms, which government is saying it as GST 2.0, and that is what we can consider that it brings a radical change. So, what are the key features of that? Then, what are the benefits? What are the challenges? You can say that. What are the strategy of the government to overcome those challenges? And what should be the key takeaway from this GST amendment and reform? We will try to discuss and cover in this. So, let's talk about what are the key features of GST amendment. The first thing you should know that this decision has been taken by GST Council in its 56th meeting. You should know that GST Council has been one of the most successful federal institutions in our country promoting collaborative and cooperative federalism. So it is one of the most important decisions of GST Council which it has taken to eliminate 12% and 28% GST rates and go by only 5% and 18%. Why it has been done? So you know that the four slabs defeated the very purpose of one nation, one tax. Hence, there was pressure to reform. Even reform commissions, including Vijay Kelkar, committee also recommended that. So this is one. Second thing is that why 18%? You know that. So 70% of the government revenue comes from 18% of GST. That you should know. So 5% and 18%, that is how it has been deliberately analyzed and planned and decision has been taken. So by 5%, 18%, when government is going to bring that slab from 22nd September, it would have, you know that, its benefits, its challenges. At the same time, government has also introduced other steps. Since 2%, 5% and 18% are, let's say, highly being, let's say that debated, other points are being relegated, but government has brought other reforms. So let me talk other reforms, then we'll talk the benefits. Other reforms are that now there will be, let's say, one GST return file every month. There used to be multiple forms, you can say that. So that has been simplified. Then government has introduced artificial intelligence in that, and automatically GST refund will happen to certain minimum level of, let's say, money that they have fixed, they have capped. That will happen. They will bring process level reform to simplify, let's say, that process of GST. That steps have been taken. So then government will constitute GST appellate tribunal. So far, you should know 101st Amendment Act envisaged for GST appellate tribunal, but it was not constituted. As per this GST amendment, government has promised to constitute GST appellate tribunal that will also address GST related disputes, and that will further, let's say, that smoothen the process of GST implementation. So having said that, let's come to talk on the benefits. Let's say when government has reviewed, the benefits would be that as per government estimates, first it will increase consumer demand. The demand in the economy will increase. When demand in the economy will increase, you know that 0.6%. So 0.6% increment in GDP will be found as per government estimate. At the same time, our inflation will come by 1.1%. It means consumer demand will increase, demand in economy will increase, inflation will come down by 1.1%, and GDP growth will increase by 0.6%. So these things can be considered benefits. At the same time, there can be other benefits, let's say that, because now average GST will be as per the global standard, you can say below 15% average. It will make Indian economy matching to global economy, and at the same time it will make our tax structure rationalized and more efficient, tax compliance will also increase. So these are all other substantive type of benefits we can say. Then challenges, if you see that, so certainly let's say any reform has its own challenge. So challenges are, the first major challenge is government will initially incur 48,000 crore revenue loss. That is what we can say, 48,000 crore revenue loss. At the same time, you know that states will have unintended consequences, uneven consequences, and their revenue loss, they will build political pressure on government to compensate their revenue loss. The third important challenge will be that implementation related challenge, as government would have to bring adjustment and administrative process procedure reforms, and therefore it will face challenges in implementation, but that may not be as challenging as you can say that the first two challenges. You can say other minor challenges can be also there, but we can overcome these challenges simply because when GST was introduced and came into effect since 2017, it was very complex and it was very challenging to implement. We did it, so it can also be done. The government has some options, government has some leveraging points you can say, and that is how government can apply those leveraging points to overcome challenges. Like first leveraging point is that the government has GST compensation fund. That GST compensation fund comes through GST cess. Let's say government collects cess, and that cess revenue is kept under GST compensation fund, and according to government estimate, government will have 40,000 to 50,000 crore in GST compensation fund through cess. So even 40 to 50,000 crore, if it gets, it can be adequate enough to compensate the loss we can consider. Then when there will be increase in tax base, demand in economy, inflation coming down, GDP increasing, so that may in long run give more benefits than what you have a revenue loss of 48,000 crore. That is how it is being argued. So that can happen. So that is how government can leverage on these things, and government can through GST council have political dialogue and can have a spirit of collaborative federalism. What Supreme Court says in Mohit Minerals case, that there should be constitutional morality to bring collaborative federalism, so that there is coordination in implementation of GST to overcome challenges, especially federal challenges, and that can also be overcome. Therefore, the chief economic advisor says that it is fiscally sustainable reform, means government will be able to sustain it and implement it. Therefore, what we can say, the key takeaway you can consider. So the key takeaway from this radical reform can be that we have rationalized our GST tax structure by 5% and 18%. We have brought other reforms to make process more efficient, including artificial intelligence. You should know that if faceless tax assessment is part of GST, that is going to be further intensified by application of AI-based analysis. And let's say that government will have 40% tax on sin goods. That is another takeaway you can consider. And then the next takeaway is GST appellate tribunal for dispute resolution, and therefore it can be considered as an important and radical decision by the government. Although in difficult times of tariff imposed by US and other such challenges, but still the government has taken, which is going to come into effect since 22nd of this September, and that is what we can say, another boost to Indian economy to take it to next level. So hope that it helps you in getting a holistic view of this reform. You can give also feedback about what further we can improve or any query you related to GST reform. So we'll try to cover and answer it. Namaskar.